Hello, welcome back again to the Trek Way. I'm having to remember which podcast I'm on because I'm on a few and I almost got the title wrong there. So I was doing my soccer podcast earlier on, Grace. So I was getting a little bit confused in my head.
Strange new football.
I like it. You're onto something, mate. You're onto something. Hello, Greg Avers back with myself. We are back for the next review episode of Strange New Worlds, which is not as good as last week, but not as bad as it was a few weeks ago. Safe to say, Gray. Yeah.
Yep.
It was kind of okay, I guess. And this one today is we're ploughing on. We really are ploughing on. Streaming doesn't take much of a break unless you're Netflix. It tends to just play for 10 weeks and it's done. So we are more than halfway through. We've got 4 episodes left after this, which is a shame.
It's too short, man. 10, it should always be like around 12, 13.
Yeah, do it. Superman and Lois and stuff used to do it certainly anyway, like 13, 15 episodes. I get that 20 plus is too much now, but
yeah. Mainly because of the expense. It's always down to the money. You know, that's why Superman and Lois went from 15 to 13 to 10. Of course, with the strike, it'll be about a year before we see season.
So you
4.
will watch Battlestar Galactica then, because you have nothing left to watch, mate.
I probably, because there's a bunch of stuff I just have sitting on my list that I might as well get back to now, because pretty soon the trickle down's already happening, but it's going to get much worse real soon.
The people that listen to this and watch this, comment below and say, demand that Gray has to watch the modern Battlestar Galactica and tell him how good it is. So it's not just me that's saying this. So other people go and he goes, okay.
I'm sure it's good. I just got to get around to
He's busy,
really
man.
watching.
A lot of stuff to watch. So today is season 2, episode 6 of Strange New Worlds, called Lost in Translation. Which don't get me wrong, it was alright. I think we've still got some of the best episodes ahead, which is good. I'm looking forward to the Gorn. But we'll kick off anyway. And as usual, Gray will jump in if he's got any comments and whatnot. I'm always a fan of Starship Eye Candy. And so is Gray,
Sure.
as I've said before. So I was really pleased when I saw a beautiful opening shot of the Enterprise in a stellar nursery. This is where a lot of their budget goes, Gray, I guess, in the special effects. And they're done well, unlike B-rated sci-fi shows. It's expensive business, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing that I think is kind of cool is just that, they in the original series, back in the late '60s, so forth, they only had so much to do. I mean, they did a great job. Don't get me wrong. When I was a kid, it was like the latest and greatest, and it still holds up pretty well considering. But there's so many things you can do now that they couldn't do in the original series, and things that you wished you could see, and now we're actually seeing it. So it's kind of cool to see the Enterprise, the older Enterprise in the timeline, being able to see it in its more of its glory.
Yeah,
because we've seen the Enterprise in the later editions in its glory in the movies, but to see the original, is kind of cool to see all these things going on.
It's
pretty neat.
It's the kind of Cora paint. It's the lick of CGI goodness that we actually really need. I just hope they get it closer to what TOS looks like by the end of its run. That would be nice if after a big battle near the end of the Strange New Worlds run, and it has to be a big battle, of course, we want the pew-pew, that it needs to go through almost an Enterprise E type 1 year plus makeover after it gets smashed up, and they actually change the hull plating significantly enough that it looks like the Enterprise from TOS, and then we are full circle. So enjoy it now while you can, guys, because it does look really nice.
I think the only other thing I would really like to see, and they got to be thinking about this, is that when the last episode is, whether it's season 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, whatever it ends up
10,
being.
behave.
Well, we can always hope. They need to be able to hand it off to Kirk, and he becomes captain of the Enterprise and flies.
And he sits in the bloody chair.
Sits in the
chair. Not until
then,
not before.
Right. And then he takes off and, whatever. And that's good for 2 reasons. One, it's the proper handoff because we know it's going to happen. And it also opens up the possibility of having newer TOS episodes now. Which, if they wanted to do that, they could. I mean, they could just continue, the early voyages of Kirk and the crew when he first took
They
over.
could. I never thought of that. Great. Well done.
Oh heck yeah! And you gotta know they're thinking this. I mean, come on, they wouldn't be introducing Kirk in Strange New Worlds just for the fact that he's Kirk. I mean, that's one reason. The other reason is it's quite possibly will spin off into its own thing, and we'll hear the early voyages. So,
What would you call it?
Star Trek: The Early Voyages. I don't know.
We
Is
can
that
do
too
better
corny?
than that. We can do better than that. Just
Star Trek.
We can't call it just Star Trek, unfortunately. Or
Star
maybe we
Trek
could.
new classic. Nah, that's I'd have to think about that one for a while.
I put them on the spot. I'm really sorry. Yeah, if anyone's got any other suggestions, put them below. What would you call a in-between series, I guess?
This is going to be a while, though. By the time that actually comes about, it'll be a few years. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hollywood's current situation is not helping us there either. So, the reason they're in a I almost jumped the gun. The reason they're in a Stella nursery, which is always, I mean, Gray and I, especially Gray, love all the space eye candy stuff in general in current times in real life. Mm-hmm. And you see these images all the time from like Hubble and James Webb, and they look stunning. And you get some of this in here. They're in there because they're actually, Starfleet's building a refinery. And as soon as I saw this refinery, Gray, I got flashbacks of, sorry to damage you again, Star Trek Insurrection, I think it was, where they've got those devices that were collecting like particles from the atmosphere, which would have stopped the de-aging process of the local, was it the Baku? Mm-hmm. So I got vibes of similar kind of ship designs when I saw this, but it is a station that they are building, and they're going to collect and process deuterium because that is starship fuel, and you find a lot of it in stellar nurseries apparently, so makes sense.
Right.
But why would they do that if we see later on, caveat spoiler, Enterprise refueling herself on the spot? Why do that if starships can refuel themselves? Do you know why?
That's a good thing you brought up. I don't know. The only thing I could think of is that that's a process that they would rather not do if they don't have to.
It's not proper, efficient, or not every ship can do it, or all of the above.
Right. It'll work, but it's almost kind of like buying petrol or gas that's not quite refined. Your car will run on it, but it would run better if you put the good stuff in.
Yeah, true.
Something like that.
It makes a good point. You get the fuel that F1 cars take, the super unleaded, the super really good stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. Got to fill up with the good stuff. And I put a little comment here, which I was fishing at the time with Gray, and I caught a fish in Mr. Gray with this comment, the whole difference between a gas station and a petrol station, and he did bite. I found that amusing comment from Pike when he's talking about it's equivalent of a gas station. And I'm thinking, well, it is. It's American writers, an American show, but we're now in the 23rd century. So why are they calling it a gas or a petrol station? I don't know.
Well, first of all, technically, Pike calling it a gas station is more true than ever because
oh no, he's caught a fish back.
So it's right. It's catching gas in the truest sense.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Really, he's correct. But in terms of gas and petrol, the funny thing is that yes, technically a petrol station would be more correct than gas station, which is what we call it over here. My only thing, I believe the only reason they call it gas station here is because essentially the cars were burning
gasoline,
the fumes from the petrol. So they said, oh, the fumes are gas. It's a gas station.
Yeah, petroleum and gasoline. They're both people are both sides are not wrong, Gray. Gasoline and petroleum are things. They are both things, so they're both correct actually. But yeah, that's funny. I was about to just like leave. I went, Gray's got me back. He's got me a good one there. You literally are right. You literally are right.
Yeah.
So it's nothing to do with being an American thing. It's actually factually accurate. So yeah, it is a big ass gas station essentially. And we do see that
look pretty cool too. You can't really see it clearly because it's surrounded by gas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you do see of the station, the refinery, is kind of cool looking. And we see some stuff on the inside and how it's built and everything. We've never seen
when we saw
before.
When we saw the inside of it, Gray, people thought, including I think even Trek Central, on the reviews from or the teaser trailers from before that was more shots of the inside of the Enterprise, which I can get. If you think about what's sitting along the nacelles, what's long enough for that to actually be, that could have been that. But no, it wasn't. It was the station. It was the station all the time. So we do see the nice shot of the Enterprise fueling up, and that was cool. I love stuff like that. I really do. We always wondered what those red collectors
what do they do?
Buzzer collectors or whatever they're called.
They actually gave them a function instead of not having a function.
They open up, they take the gas in, they possibly don't refine it. I don't see how they could, so Gray's probably right what he said before. Love shots like that. So did Gray, because we don't see shots like that, and they could have never done that in TOS. If they tried that in TOS, they would have,
broke the bank, and the show would have been cancelled after one episode.
Ripped the universe in half, or something tragic would have happened. But yeah, no, they didn't do it. This is why I like Strange New Worlds. It's kind of TOS with the budget that TOS deserved.
The other thing I think it looked like too, for people that used to, or maybe still do, tinker in cars, especially years ago.
Yeah.
There was things called ram scoops that were attached to the engine of the car, and you would open the ram scoop to let in more air to give the engine a bigger boost. So it looked like that. It looked like it was opening it up like a ram scoop, like we're gonna suck this stuff in and really go.
I didn't know what a ram scoop was until I watched Star Trek Insurrection, where Riker's talking about opening up the ram scoops with the intention being of ramming it down the sonar's throat. Right, I remember that line very well. And I remember the officer sat beside him getting extremely attracted to Riker's hard man, I'm going to kick your ass type attitude. He was almost Kirk-esque for a moment there, But yeah, we're already diversion. So yeah, nice beautiful shot of the Enterprise refueling. Like to see that. So there's Gray. And we kinda get Hemmer back in this, and the actor that plays him, Gray, did say that he would be back, but not in the way you might think. Yeah. And it was sweet. I personally found this sweet. It was in a tutorial video helping Uhuru, because Uhuru was showing some brief interest in season 1 in engineering stuff, and Hemmer was helping her. So he's decided to actually start making tutorial videos for it, where he's pulling her chain. He literally is like, don't press that. Oh, you'll blow up the ship. No, I'm only kidding. I'm joking.
So it's YouTube of the 23rd century.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, YouTube.
It's still there.
This comes from Uhura hears something on the bridge that's a kind of weird, kind of strange noise that I didn't note down, and she doesn't know what's going on, so she goes down and she's literally doing diagnostics and trying to resolve the issue herself, which is fine. And that's where I think Pelia comes in at one point. What are you doing? I'm allowed to be here, or I'm trying to fix things, and Hemmer showed me this, that, and the next thing, and it was a lovely scene. I miss Hemmer. I really gutted to get rid of him. I don't know why they get rid of him when they've seen how popular he was. Why? I just
think they wanted to show that the realistic stuff happens, and people. I also don't think they thought that Hemmer was as would have caught on so quickly with the fans. Yeah. And I think if they had to do it over again, they probably wouldn't have done it. Because right now Pelia is being the new chief engineer, even though the actress Carol Kane she's good, but and I'm not saying anything bad yet, but she still hasn't quite grown on me yet. It's still too early. Yeah. But this is the weird thing though. But Hemmer, for some odd reason, really, really hooked up with me quickly. I got to like Hemmer very quickly.
His attitude and his tone. Look what he said in the video. Yeah. He was playing a little practical joke there. He's funny. He's got a dry sense of humor and wit. Exactly.
I think there's just a lot of things, kudos to the actor as well, but a lot of things about the character just clicked really quick. Not knocking Pelia, I get it, but she's not clicking as quickly as for me. At least not yet. That's not a bad thing. It's just that she's not clicking as quickly. That's all.
You said the actress that plays her, she is American, yeah?
Yeah. She has quite a resume of stuff she's done.
What is it? What kind of? I know she puts on that accent for the role. Was she got a Midwestern accent, an Eastern accent?
I don't know. She's done so many different accents and stuff. I'm not even sure anymore.
Yeah, she's
She's
convincing.
done a lot of comedic roles. She's done serious roles. She's done a lot of stuff.
Ah,
You know, if you Google her on on Wikipedia or IMDb, you'll see the stuff she's done. She's done quite a bit. I
okay.
believe she's in her mid-50s,
Hmm.
something like that. You
You
know,
can tell like she's done comedy before because
yeah,
she is ideal, perfect for that role. And she won't replace Emma, but she's good enough
yeah.
for me at the moment. Let's say she's slowly growing on me as well. So by then she won't replace Emma, but she'll be a suitable replacement, I guess. So
I think part of the problem, maybe it's just me, because other people don't have this issue, but I find her accent to be tough to get used to. Like there'd be
tough
times
for
where
her as well to say that.
yeah, because when she's delivering certain lines, I'm not quite sure of every word she's saying. And with Hemmer, he was quite,
Look,
his diction was
you can
perfect.
understand me, but you can't understand her.
Yeah, but her accent's like, I don't know where her accent is. It's all over the place. So I'm trying to like, get used to that. But that could just be me. Some people, I've noticed like on uh some UK programs that I might see, because the accents vary so much from Scotland to England to Wales. The thicker the accent gets in whatever area they come from, the harder it is for me to figure out what the hell they're saying. And in some ones, when they really get into some of the thick Cockney stuff, I don't have a clue what they're saying. I actually have to put on the subtitles so that I can see what they said. I'm going like, because damn, I want to understand what's going on. I mean, I don't do it that often, but there are occasions where
Sometimes.
it just gets too much,
I,
and I just gotta go. Damn,
I,
I'm glad the subtitles are there.
I don't know what Pele's accent is based on. I'd love to know if anyone knows.
It's
Please tell us what part of the
I think
world it's from.
to me it sounds more Austrian Hungarian kind of
Yeah,
accent,
yeah.
which makes it that much harder to
So
understand.
she's basically the 23rd century of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
Like
there
get
you
to the
go.
chopper,
She's just a lot smaller.
get to the starship. Um,
I could just see her doing it. Yeah, get to the transporters.
well, I know we're diverging, but it was a smaller notes anyway, so I expected to fill it out a little bit. I hope.
Diversion is our staple on the show.
I want your opinion, Gray. There's nothing to stop them if they kill off another engineer at the end of this season. To finally get it right and bring in Scotty early. There's nothing in canon to say that he can't come in at any time. Am I right?
Well, yeah, and I think part of what I was saying about when the series ends, handing it off to Kirk, that's also around the same time that it should go right to Scotty too. So I'm
Why?
kind of
Why?
hoping
Well, no.
all.
Why can't it be engineered soon, like season
Well,
three
I'm
or
not.
four?
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying that it won't
But
happen. It's
chief engineer.
possible, right? But I don't think they're going to do that. But because for continuity reasons, they've already killed one. They brought in another one. They're not going to get rid of her again. I mean, it's possible, but I kind of doubt it. But still, I would like to see Scotty come in somewhere in the final season of Strange New Worlds, so that it's kind of it passes along. And if I really want to get what I want, it would be kind of cool to see it pass along, and you see Sulu, and you see Scotty, and you finally see Kirk,
Yeah.
and then boom, off into the void.
Don't bring them all in at once because you'll spoil it. Just bring them in slowly but surely, and then by the end you've pretty much got everyone. Yeah, that would be good. I'd be
I
happy
mean,
with
heck,
that.
you could just have a shot of Kirk and his first command on the Enterprise, go for a wide shot, and you could see, let's say, an Oriental-looking guy steering the ship. You don't even have to say he's Sulu; you would just know.
Just assume.
He
Yeah.
wouldn't have to say a word.
Yeah. True.
So we'll see. These are things that we as Trek nuts would love to see, but whether it happens, we don't know.
Yeah, this is true. Let's hope it goes on for a while longer anyway. So, so yeah, love to see him or back. But Pele is not quite the same replacement, but we are liking her so far with her sense of humour. Unfortunately, though, Uhura's, from this signal that she's hearing, whatever, only herself at this moment is hearing this. She starts hallucinating. And she actually sees a zombie version of Hemmer at one point and was freaking out.
Why did they have to put a zombie? Just zombies are everywhere. Why?
Yeah,
Somebody
but
had to sneak a zombie into Star Trek.
I'll tell you why, because that episode that he died in, he was infected with that zombie type virus,
Sure.
which wouldn't have turned into the same zombie as he looked there. Well, I don't think so, but that's why he jumped off the back, and you saw a little bit of flashback of him jumping off the back of the Enterprise, which was heartbreaking. Sure. He had that more realistic version of the zombie virus, and he wanted to kill himself. So that's maybe what it would have looked like. They were exaggerating, of course. It was pretty horrifying to see him like that. But he was right. The actor was right. He did come back in not quite the same way. And I'm thinking at this stage, the girl really needs some sleep. Uhuru has not been sleeping too well. She's not. It's just things on her mind. She admits this to Pike. But yeah, it was nice to see Hemmer back regardless anyway. Now, we have a couple of Kirks in this episode, so that's why I'm referring to Sam Kirk and James T a lot separately rather than
Kirking out.
Kirking out. Double Kirk is never a bad thing. And because we don't really know much about his brother from canon, from TOS onwards, it's nice to actually see a bit more of Sam. So James T's back, and he's not based on Enterprise. Normally he's based in the Farragut, but Sam Kirk is based in Enterprise, so there's a little bit of beef between them as well later in this episode, which is nice. I like to see brotherly banter because I have a brother as well, and they're enjoying a wee dram of whiskey, and they're actually having Scotch whiskey. I actually saw it was actually it was so authentic. It was whiskey without an E at the end. That's how authentic it was. But
that bottle must be old.
It's pretty much, yeah. But then they wouldn't call it.
I'm sure the company is still producing it even in the 23rd century.
But they wouldn't call it Scotch whiskey, so that was the thing. If it's whiskey without an E, it would just be called whiskey for us anyway. So that's the confusing thing. Yeah. But I like their little authentic touch they put in. There none of this synthahol crap that seems to be. I don't know if it's TOS onwards or next gen onwards, but they're not drinking synthahol at this stage. Yeah. They're still going on to shift next day with hangovers. So they're having a little disagreement about their careers, which I like this little bit, Gray. Turns out, the progress of Kirk, if you want, how fast he's progressing up the chain. He's now been made first officer of the Farragut, which is the fastest ever at this stage. Not a surprise, because, I mean, from canon, does he become captain of the Farragut before he becomes captain of Enterprise? Or is it first officer to the...
I don't remember, but I thought it was first officer Farragut, and then he was offered captaincy of the Enterprise. But yeah, they mentioned that he was the youngest ever first officer in Starfleet.
Yeah.
So they're starting to build the character of Kirk and how unusual he was, and stuff in this series, which is cool.
He made captain of the Farragut in the alternate universe episode last season, so I don't think that'll happen this time around because I don't recall it being in canon. So yeah, he's been made first officer, fastest ever, and Sam doesn't seem to be too enamored by this news. He seems to be a bit, and it basically comes down to what we think of Sam being a little bit jealous, but I kind of don't understand why when Sam is an officer on board the flagship, and he actually says that at one point later on.
Oh yeah, he says it later. I'm on the flagship.
So you stick to your Farragut and your first officer business. I'm on the flagship, man. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. I was like, wow, okay. So they're having a little.
Are you still there? I hear you. It's weird because all I see is the lines now. I don't see you.
Did my picture freeze?
No, it's all distorted now. It's like you're completely gone with a bunch of weird looking.
Oh, I'm still here, mate. Trust me, and I can see you fine, so we're okay for my end.
Okay,
because it's my end of recording. For my end,
hopefully it'll clear up.
No, for my end, I'm doing recording, so it should be fine. I'm sure people.
See, I'm in the U.S. Everybody, he's over in Scotland, but it's the first time I've ever seen him disappear and replaced by a bunch of bizarre artifacts all over.
Well, I've been taken over.
Oh, you're back. Okay, now you're back. You're back. Good old Discord. Yes,
it's never gone.
We love Discord. It's so great.
It does suck a little bit, doesn't it? So yeah,
Sorry about that, folks.
no, technical glitches happen, but we are raw and unedited, so we will carry on. And I'm too lazy to edit. There is that as well. So little disagreement about their careers, which I found amusing. They always love to, blow small things in TV shows out of proportion, and that was this little small thing to get blown out of proportion. It probably wouldn't happen in real life.
I don't know. I kind of thought it was more of a sibling rivalry thing because you could see they were going at each other. It's like, well, I'm on the fast track to captain. You're doing xenobiology. Like, wow. And then, and he's going like, xenobiology is serious stuff, man. He said, even just because I'm not a captain. And then they got into the whole thing, Dad, like you best stuff. And I'm sitting there going like, yeah, that's a classic sibling rivalry right there. So it made sense, and they definitely have a thing. And then later in the episode, as we see again, they get into another little tiff that was funny.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But just some strong sibling rivalry, like going bananas.
Nothing wrong with that. It's a little bit healthy. We also have another catch up this time between Spock and Chapel.
Yeah. I'm glad they kind of addressed it in this scene because I didn't
jump over it.
Yeah, you didn't want to just like, it was just that, and we're not talking about it. So this was kind of cool. And you do notice that what were they doing when they were catching up?
Well, they were just chatting.
No, they were playing 3-dimensional chess.
Oh yes, so they were, yeah.
And that's for some of the fans out there that don't remember, the original series introduced 3-dimensional chess. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not widely accepted because the normal chess is accepted, it is a game and it is played and it does exist. And basically all it is 3 boards instead of 1 board, and you can move the pieces instead of diagonally on the board. Let's say a bishop, you can also move them down in a diagonal pattern or whatever. So it's a lot more. There's a lot more involved to it, and stuff. But it was nice to see it again.
Yeah, it was. It's I'm crap at normal chess, so 3-dimensional chess I would get my arse handed to me. But yeah. I used to be able to play chess. I don't know.
I played chess for a short while way back, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I won most of the games I played. I won, but after a while, it's just like I can't take the mental acuity thing that long. It kind of started getting heavy. And then when I started playing when I started playing people that were serious about chess, okay, I thought I was good. Nah, 6 or 7 moves, I'm done. I'm toast.
That many? Wow.
And I'm going like, oh man, how did that happen? And I'm looking at it and I can't figure out anything. So it's just like, okay, I'm good. I'm done for now.
Yeah. Well, this is why we play video games now, Gray and I. Potential, but not that much.
Overall, video games you could do easy, hard, nightmare. On chess you can't do that. It's just the game.
This is why I don't like playing games with too many puzzles and tasks in them. When I was playing Zelda, when I get stuck after a little while, I would just check how to do the dungeon because I'm not doing this. Yeah. I use my brain for work. I want to relax now, so that's amazing.
I do the same thing. I have a limit to how many times I will do something over and over again. So if I do it over and over again, like whatever, more than 6 or 7 times, and I still don't got it, I go, YouTube.
Hey, nothing wrong with
it. No.
So yes, they are having a little catch up, Spock and Chapel, and they're discussing if they should tell Starfleet about their situation because it's not necessarily frowned upon, but certainly in militaries around the world just now it is. But I think in the future it's a case of they got to announce or inform Starfleet of any kind of relationship. I guess it just covers their back. But they kind of decide that they're not going to say anything about what's happening because they just want to see where it's going to go. So maybe there's nothing to tell Starfleet about, if that makes sense, because they don't know where they're maybe going to go. So they're going to get it on, clearly. That's fine. And now we have Uhuru having even worse visions now. And at this stage, we don't know what's causing them, of course. She's seen really horrific scenes, so much so that she actually turns around and lamps James T. Kirk in the face because he was just trying to help out. while she's at the bar having a drink, and she does say the nice, funny line of, "I really don't want to be hit on right now."
Yeah.
But it's James T. Kirk. It's kind of his shtick, his thing. I don't think he was hitting on her though, or was he? I don't know.
I think he was only doing it a little.
Yeah.
But she was in a state right now where I don't even want to talk to anybody, kind of thing. Because of all the hallucinations. So she just took it further and said, don't, no more hitting on me. And he was kind of like, oh, okay.
Very sorry, very sorry. Yeah. She's not in a good situation at the moment, so she doesn't want to be hit on at Paul. So she hits on him instead, literally, physically. She's seen dead people and horrific things, and she sees then a alter, like another version of her actually at one point, who's trying to like control her and hold her back, and that's why she turns around and literally hooks this person that actually turns out being Kirk, which was a bit of a surprise. He wasn't expecting this. His nose get busted up. He says, "Listen, we won't talk to anyone about the fact that you just hit a superior officer in the face. We won't go to sick bay because you could get into trouble for this." So he's been a bit of a legend right now, as far as I'm concerned. This whole time they've been having problems on the space station. I guess it is technically a space station. Refinery. They keep losing power and whatnot. Things keep going wrong. It's been months and months behind schedule. This thing should have been up and running already, but turns out there's a little bit of sabotage in there. Cue the song from the Kelvin verse Star Trek movies, "Sabotage" by Beastie Boys. I really like that song, just don't like the Kelvin movies, but I thought of that. Sorry, Gray, to do that to you, man. I was like really hoping they would play this song.
That's like the song from what do you call it, Enterprise?
Yeah, the one that actually sings. Yeah, horrible, man. No. It'd be fine if it was not in Star Trek. If it was a song on its own, you'd be like, "That's beautiful,"
Yeah.
but it's not. Don't have it in Star Trek, thanks. So yeah, there has been sabotage to that station. Then this comes about through a conversation between Pele and Una, number one. They're not getting on. There's a little bit of a... This is the episode of rivalries a little bit, yeah, and bitching and moaning. They're having a little ding-dong about one another, and Una is basically like, "Don't go with your gut. You go and make sure, get these systems back up and running. Please don't follow your gut." Of course, we find out later on that Pele has used her gut, and that's why she finds out about the sabotage. And they find out the saboteur. It's a guy called Ramon, not to confuse with the band, the Ramones. He is good, all right band, decent band. He's cuddled in a little corner, like absolutely doolally, bonkers, lost the plot,
like fetal position, kind of like
not making much sense of anything. It was him that sabotaged everything. So they do what any good Starfleet officer did, kick him out of airlock. No, they took him to sick bay.
They should have. No,
That's what we probably do now. They took him to sick bay on board the Enterprise, and that's where Benga's actually doing some testing, saying that the lineage parts of his brain have been damaged, and we're starting to slowly get into what's going on with these audible signals that Uhura's hearing and this guy's hearing as well at one point. Uhura's seen she keeps seeing horrific things. She sees everyone on the bridge getting sucked out into space. Spock just goes bye-bye. And we don't know why this is happening at this stage. All will become clear. I do like how it becomes clear. We'll talk about a rant and why we gave it the score we did at the end, of course. Your boy Ramon goes a little bit nuts. Of course he does. He attacks Benga, and actually I think he gets one of the scalpels and tries to slash him out, and he cuts him across it. Thankfully, it's just superficial, and it's not deep, so he's fine. But still, he makes a run for it. He bombs away. You thought at this stage, Gray, early on, that something was trying to communicate with Uhura. I didn't. So you're obviously 2 steps ahead of me.
Yeah, because I thought it was they kind of made it a little too simple, because when she first started hearing the whatever the sound,
Hmm.
immediately I could tell that it was a voice. It's just you couldn't understand what the voice was
It's
saying,
like
but it's had the
robotic or
same,
something, or
yeah, it
like
had the same kind of timbre, whatever they call it, of a voice. And I'm going like, okay, so she's hearing a voice, and somehow she's gonna have to communicate it. So I kind of figured that one out real soon. Not that it ruined the show. I just kind of wished I would have been figured it out later, but I
yeah.
picked up on it pretty quick. So, and of course, in this episode, she's lucky that she's not getting as scrambled as Ramon, at least not yet. But this is what's making her nuts, which understandable. She's losing sleep. We didn't say that at the beginning, but she's losing a lot of sleep. So she's making this worse, and still not getting the hallucinogens, and they're all thinking that she's going nuts, and she's not really. So it was that. So all that was good. They didn't know what to expect because they didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. It makes sense. It was a kind of signal that she can't make out at this stage, certainly anyway. So this is the episode, let's say, of reunions and catch-ups, and we have another one where Laan comes across Kirk again, and seems a little bit uncomfortable. Gray mentions here a bit of sexual tension going on from her anyway. He's just been his usual cool self,
No, he wants the sexual attention, but he doesn't know, and she's already feeling it because she was with Kirk in another timeline. So it's just kind of like, okay.
This is why she called him before randomly after that episode, or at the end of the episode. He's like, oh, yeah, let's go to the bar for drinks.
And he didn't forget that, too. He goes, you still owe me a drink.
Yeah. And
she's like, oh, crap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uhuru finds Ramon. She splits up from Kirk. She goes to find Ramon, but he isn't listening. Language sectors his brain damaged, so he's not listening. This bit was a little bit. This was a little bit nuts, but I liked it. Whatever he was doing, it led to a part of the nacelle blowing up, but Kirk kind of, gets there just in time, sees what's about to happen, grabs Uhura and asks for an emergency beam out. So you've noted here, great and rightly so, this is the start of what makes him such a good officer, that he can see things that are about to happen.
Yeah, I think they're building his legend early of what he was, excuse me, what he'll become. But the whole scene to me is that as soon as he came into the room, he just assessed the situation within a second and knew what was going to happen, and then just grabbed her and said, beam us out now. He didn't even waste time. He knew what was going to happen, and this is what Kirk's all about. He figures these things out faster than anyone else. And then boom, they get out of there before it explodes. So all good.
He smells danger.
Yep.
So no, it was pretty impressive there. Obviously, Ramones went bye-bye, and you never see how bad the damage really was. But I'm not saying it wasn't the hole in the cell that blew up, but it's certainly a little chunk of it blew up. So they're not going to.
It looked like a fair chunk of it blew up, like the side, like it was like the side blew out.
Yeah, they're not going to warp anytime soon, are they?
No.
Nah.
And they don't even mention that either, so they just kind of
they don't, which was a little bit of a, I wouldn't say bad writing. It's just something you mentioned that's significant. You mentioned something about after.
I would too, yeah. I would expect the engineer, Pelly, or some engineer, to come on and say, well, we're not going anywhere with that blown nacelle, or whatever. But they just kind of gloss over that, and that's kind of, oh, all right, whatever.
Yes, they do. So yeah, they get out just in time. Thank God. Otherwise, the whole Star Trek would be ruined forever. Nice, awkward conversation between James Kirk and Laan. An even more awkward conversation between Pelia and Una. Actually, that was the because of their beef beforehand. They kind of tried to make up their difference. Basically. Una was calling Pelia kind of reckless, called her a space hippie, which I know I'm jumping the gun by saying that a little bit here, but I found that hilarious because, I mean,
because she looks like one.
Well, she does, but I noted here, Gray, that while it's true, a first officer never ever speaks to their crewmen like that, ever. I mean, I know it's a TV show, but you mentioned here the military aspect is definitely a lot looser than it should be, and with Ortega, it most certainly is. I don't really like that part for me.
No, I don't either. I think what should have happened is, and what typically happens when you do that is that one of the officers says, "If I may speak plainly."
Yes.
They always say
they
that.
ask permission.
And as soon as they say that, and the captain says, "You can speak plainly," then the fireworks start. because they're telling him to speak your mind. Go ahead, no problem. So she should have said, "Can I speak plainly, please?" And then they would have said yes, and then they would have had the argument. So they kind of skipped over that. And even though that's just a small thing, it was something that really should have been there because it makes sense.
Yeah,
and stuff. And I mean, Ortega's a different situation. I think they're trying to show you that she's a different kind of person,
Officer,
and that you need to accept that that's the way she is. And I guess to a certain extent you can, but it's still a little much. It's still a little too much.
We are nitpicking, and we know it's a TV show, and it's not. It is kind of loosely based in military aspect, but it's just it's not ideal. The next bit seemed a bit far-fetched for me. Obviously, I want your opinion, Gray. Sam Kirk and Uhuru, along with James T, he's there, of course, think an alien race from another dimension that lives in the deuterium is actually using Uhuru and using Ramon to communicate with. Now, this is at the time. This isn't what we know at the very end of the episode. You thought some communication was going on there at the time. I just thought when you're hearing about life forms in deuterium and they can't communicate, I got that bit. They find different ways to communicate. I just the way they at this time, bear in mind not what we know at the very end. At this time, I thought it was a bit far fetched. I'm guessing you didn't think that because you thought there was communication going on pretty early on in the episode.
I go. I go along with you on this one, except that it bothered you probably a little more than me. However, I thought that the basic concept of what they're talking about, or how the life forms communicated, etc., was actually really good. I liked it, but the way everything was resolved was, to me, way too easy and way too quick.
Yeah.
It was almost kind of like, well, okay, now they've just found out, that the aliens are trying to communicate. Okay, great. Proceeding the way it should, and then all of a sudden it's almost like, hey, we only have 15 minutes left of this episode, so let's speed it up. And all of a sudden it was just like everything starts getting resolved. It starts happening faster and quicker, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
So to me that's a little bit of sloppy writing. They should have gradually brought it in within the time of the episode, but everything was just going like, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know that going back to the episodic form of Star Trek is a challenge because they've been so used to, for several seasons and years, doing the serial arcs that they've done in modern recent Trek. But bear in mind, they've done so many series and seasons of the episodic stuff that, it can be done.
Like all of Star Trek.
Yeah, so...
has been episodic with arcs, but mostly episodic. So
watch the older stuff, guys. That's how you do it. Just it's a small nitpick. But then obviously what we find out after does make the whole alien race communication thing a bit more believable. The universal translator works on some common denominators in language to turn sounds and words and stuff into something that people can understand. But they couldn't do this with this alien life form. They can't communicate in the normal way. And you get examples of this in Star Trek. Not often, but you do get examples of it. Think of Discovery, the last season, where you got those life forms that were not anything like we ever seen in Star Trek before, that lived outside the galaxy. That's how advanced they were. And they used kind of light patterns and stuff to communicate. I found that aspect fascinating. So now, at this stage, when they are hijacking bits of the brain, the language centers, to then give you visions, that was their way of talking to you. And Uhuru starting to put things together, like, I know what they want and what they're talking about. So was Ramon. That's why he blew up part of the nacelle. He was trying to stop the deuterium getting refined, because that's what kills the life forms. Yeah, it's like putting them in a blender. It's like putting you in a blender, Gray. You're not going to come out in one piece. You're going to come out in thousands of tiny little pieces.
Each one sentient. No, I'm kidding.
This is Gray in the future. He's advanced. So
And
yeah,
this is where I was saying that that was a perfect example of what I thought was too fast, because she started thinking and she started putting the pieces together like lightning.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
going like, come on, no, you're not Sherlock Holmes here, okay? I know you're pretty smart, but I don't think you're gonna put it together quite that fast.
You're
She's just
not.
kind of, oh yeah, and the I got it. And I'm like, that easy? Come on now. I
Yeah,
mean, at
true.
least spend a few minutes on it.
Pacing is a
Whatever.
very hard thing to do in an episode, but it can be done, guys. You just need to pace it a little bit better, and it would make
Right.
more sense, you know. So yeah, they kind of figure out what's going on, and they realize that starting up the station's refinery will kill thousands of them, millions of them. Whereas the Enterprise, when it done it before, yeah, it killed some of them, but nowhere near as many as the station would if they get it wrong. Hence the sabotage from Ramon. He's trying to stop this thing coming up and running. And it's a good thing that Pele did follow her gut, because if she hadn't followed her gut, they would have never found out what was going on. She found out it was sabotage and why it was being sabotaged in the end. With Uhura's visions that she's seeing, when she's putting two and two together, she sees the shuttle crash aftermath that killed her parents, because that was a thing that happened. They realise though that they can't shut down the station. It's too far ahead. Uhura's trying to tell Pike, shut it down, take my word for it. And I'm saying to Gray here in the notes, would you, as the captain, try to shut down the station, and then what he orders in the end, it to be blown up because they can't shut it down based on what one officer says, whether you believe her or not? You wouldn't really, would you?
I don't think I would jump quite as fast as he did. But
Yeah.
then again, if you're
Trust
going
your
to
officers.
exactly, if you're going to trust your officers, and Pike is a pretty, damn good captain, and he's very keen on things. He's one of the best captains that Starfleet's ever had. So you got to kind of go along. So he basically went along what he heard and his gut, and just said, okay, if he believed that she was communicating. So if she was communicating, she saw a bunch of dead aliens. They had no choice.
Yeah.
So he took it, and he said, listen, if Starfleet comes to talk to us about this, it's my call.
Yeah, he
And
did.
because he didn't want Uhura to get in any kind of trouble. He says, it's my call. I'll explain everything.
Which any
I said,
good
okay.
captain would do, to be fair, looking after
Right.
his or her crew, you know. So I like that bit. I like that.
Yeah.
Imagine it'd be fine. Blew up a whole station. Well, there's stations elsewhere. Get your fuel elsewhere.
Got to see the photon torpedoes. That was kind of cool.
That is kind of cool.
So,
Although, how accurate was it? Did Enterprise and TOS fire many torpedoes? I don't think it did. It was
yeah,
mostly phasers, wasn't it? But they did fire
it
torpedoes
was
sometimes.
more phases, but yes, it did fire photons. But
Was
the
it very
photons that it
fast
fired,
and quick action like that?
no, not quite that quick. And they were white too. They're like bright white.
But they're
So
always red in Star Trek at a certain stage, aren't they? So
right, and that only came more or less later. I used to
yeah,
love the photons and the phasers, but the photons were always kind of cool because I love the sound of
the
that they
noise
used
is
back
brilliant.
then. It was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool.
I think I had that as back in the day where you could modify uh, ringtones on your phone and text message noises as a message came in. It would be two shots of a photon torpedo.
Yeah,
Not a quantum, has to be photon. That's unique.
yeah.
So yeah, that was
Everything has
cool.
a different sound.
So yeah, Pike does order the destruction of several torpedoes into the ship as everyone evacuates really quickly just before, including the Farragut as well. And then it blows it up. And as Grace said before, he did like the concept of how it ended there, but just it was too fast, like you said, and I have to agree with you there. It was rushed really, really quickly. What this slightly pissed me off. Uhura herself gives the orders to blow up the station. I'm like, sorry, that's not your job. That is the armory officer or the captain or the first officer, not an ensign. Really?
No, I mean
Am I nitpicking, Gray?
No, not at all. I thought the first time when she said, Uhura said on the bridge, you need to evacuate everybody from the station now. And then they look at Pike, and Pike gives the nod
Yeah.
to go ahead because it makes sense. That was fine.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But then when they started targeting it, and she goes, fire torpedoes now. I'm like, no, 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 no.
Who died and made you captain?
And the funny thing was that when she said that, then they look again at Pike, and Pike does another nod, and then they fire the torpedo. So that was too much. One nod, got it. Second time, no. He should have barked off the command and said lock on, fire now.
Third time you're at a job.
So yeah, it was really the ship. So that was kind of dumb. I agree with you totally. I don't like that at all. As soon as it happened, I was just going like, "What?" And I'm like cringing. I'm like,
too much. I know it's just a TV show, but it's based on some kind of form of reality and common sense. That's the whole point. That's why we love Star Trek in that respect.
I mean, I'm like I said, I hope we're not going to get letters on this, but it's not. It was more of a thing. At least it said to me. It's kind of an empowering thing. So it's kind of like, okay, well, she's female. We got to empower her all of a sudden. She's already empowered. She's the best damn communications officer in Starfleet.
Yeah.
She's been decorated. Da da da. I mean, how much more empowered can you get, than that? But the command that's the property of the captain. He has to give that command, not just a nod. Yeah, go ahead and do it because she said it. No, you do it.
At least the officers looked at Pike for the nod before, just going, "Yeah,
at
no
least,
bother."
Yes.
Yeah.
If they hadn't gotten the nod, that would have been really bad.
Oh yeah. So
it was bad enough as it was, but without the nod, it would have been horrible.
I'm glad we agreed on that point. But basically, that does that does the job. The aliens know that they're safe, and we know this because Zombie Hammer is no longer Zombie Hammer. He's normal Hammer. He's standing there in front of Uhura that just Uhura can see, no one else, and he smiles. And it was so sweet. It was really lovely, that scene, to see, wasn't it great? To see a nice Hammer, not Zombie Hammer, before he leaves us for good.
Yeah, exactly. And then he just kind of fades away, and all the aliens are all happy.
He does. The weird aliens are happy that we never actually bloody see. So, as I said, touched on before, it turned out that Una was really annoyed at Pelia, which is kind of obvious. But the real reason is because she kind of reminds her of Hemmer all the time. So there you go. Everyone loved Hemmer. Uhura loved Hemmer. Una loved Hemmer. They considered Hemmer a friend as well as a colleague. But also, we find out that Una's professor back at the academy, because bear in mind how old Pelia is, was Pelia herself. And she gave her a grade C. So this is maybe another reason why she's pissed off. She's like...
It was kind of funny. He says I researched that meticulously.
That was sloppy.
It should have been an A. And she's going, that was sloppy. I was like... All right.
And that's what Una called her before. Your work is sloppy. There's a middle ground. Sometimes you're official. Sometimes you're using your gut. Why don't you meet in the middle?
I thought what was nice and was still kind of sweet for Hemmer is that once Pelia figured it out, you're looking at me because I'm not Hemmer, and so you're a little upset. And then she basically said, I've been through this many, many times, because her race lives to be hundreds of years old.
Thousands.
So she said, you think you have it bad. I've gone through this with plenty of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. She needs to remember, or they both need to remember their place, I think. So yeah, I found that amusing. We get a nice little drink between Uhura and James Kirk at the end, and I note here a little precursor to that kiss that comes eventually, although that's a long way off.
A long way.
So that's how you got to start hitting somehow. So that was amusing. And then the best way to end the episode, I thought, was the most important meeting that we've had of Strange New Worlds. And I can't believe this hadn't happened already, but it hadn't. James Kirk is introduced to Spock, and the camera kind of zooms in and focuses on their handshake. Hello, well, nice to meet you, Mr. Spock. I love that scene, and so did you, I think, Gray.
Yeah. I thought it was going to end at the handshake, but then they said, you can have a seat. So he walks down. Yeah, and then they all start talking and stuff, so I was going like, okay, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, future best friends there, people. Future best friends.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the episode there. It was it was okay, like I say. Gray, what score did you give it, and why did you give it that score?
I kind of agreed with you. I went 6.5 out of 10. I felt it was I know, but I felt it was very worth watching. It's not that I wouldn't watch it if it was really terrible, like we did a couple weeks ago. But it was very worth watching. It just could have been better if they'd taken a little extra care in the writing and so forth here and there. It could have brought it up another full notch. And
Agreed.
I thought that was a little bit sloppy, and they could have done a little bit better on certain scenes as we described. But otherwise, it wasn't terrible, and it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I say just. I consider it okay episode. I like Gray said. I gave it a 6 out of 10 as well. I was going to go 7, but I thought it was a little bit too high. When you're starting to get to 6 and below, it's not great. I just put here decent without being great, which is a definition of meh. Okay, I guess. I
Or maybe meh plus.
I didn't put it down meh plus. I did put it down. It wasn't for the exact same reason as Gray mentioned, but I do have to agree with that as well. The pacing wasn't great. It wasn't an amazing story. I think that's where I came from, Gray. It wasn't a bad story. It just wasn't amazing. I know this is harder to do episodic TV, coming up with ideas all the time, but that's why you paid the pennies you paid, or not. As well, we'll get strikes, but that's another rant. So yeah,
That was pre-strike, so.
exactly, mate. Of course, but it was a precursor. So we will wrap up there. Thank you very much, everyone. Of course, as always, don't forget that we are on the podcast at the same name, The Trek Way. And my man here, Gray, does have an entertainment podcast called Gray's Green Room, again on the YouTubes and the Twitters and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget, if you like gaming as well, and I'm sure some Trekkies out there will, including I've covered a Star Trek review on this platform. Our friend Nick does Extreme PC UK on all the usual platforms as well. So if you like gaming, you could tune into that side of things. But that'll probably be us, I think, Mr. Gray, until next week, where we come back for those old scientists, which is a brilliant title. So I can't wait to see what that's all about. But yeah, we will wrap up there. Until next week, thanks for tuning in, people. And Gray, do your thing, my man.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.